The Taft-Hartley Act codified the employer's aims of de-radicalizing the CIO and of legally suppressing the most effective weapons of labor solidarity. It accomplished the former by imposing the requirement of anti-communist disclaimers for trade union officials, and the latter by outlawing sympathy strikes, supportive boycotts, wildcats, and mass picketing. The sit-down had already been banned by the Supreme Court in 1938. Taft-Hartley also renewed the Smith-Connolly Act's prohibition against union campaign contributions, in a clear attack on the operations of the PAC. Recognizing the gravity of the threat posed by the implementation of Taft-Hartley, Lewis's miners and the communist-led United Electrical Workers immediately proposed a campaign of non-compliance augmented by mass mobilizations and, perhaps, even a general strike. Murray and the other CIO chieftains were thus confronted with the dilemma of crossing two Rubicons at once. On the one hand, they had to decide whether to defy Taft-Hartley and lead the industrial unions outside the pale of the National Labor Relations Act. On the other, they had to choose whether to support the Popular Front groundswell behind Wallace, which, with the support of the communists, was becoming a movement for a third party. In the event, however, they declined either to go back into the streets or to join with the embryonic third-party forces. Instead, they chose to reconsolidate their shaken alliance with Truman and the National Democratic Party, allowing the CIO in the process to become an integral component of the administration's escalating anti-communist crusade. Many different pressures were operating to force Murray and the CIO center to repudiate their longtime allies on the left. In an era of bureaucratic retrenchment, for example, there was no longer the same practical need for the communists and their particular skills at mobilization and propaganda. The principal historian of the PAC has argued that Murray's transition to open, militant anti-communism in 1948 and his temporary alliance with the Cold War liberals of the Americans for Democratic Action, ADA, were basically pragmatic maneuvers to derail the Wallace movement, which he saw threatening PAC's efforts to lobby for a legislative repeal of Taft-Hartley. A liberal Democratic president was the CIO's foremost objective for 1948. Rejection of the communists and acceptance of the ADA was but a means to achieve that end. Following the same logic, the CIO's one-sided and obsequious tie to the presidential level of the Democratic Party, like Gompers's earlier reliance upon Wilson, bound it naturally to the twists and turns of American foreign policy from the ephemeral one-world enthusiasms of the Tehran Conference period to the nuclear imperialism of the late 40s.